Yeah, so you'll hear us bring out Matthew 5 because it is the basics of the New Covenant teaching. The Lord would often go to the synagogue. If the Lord was on a pulpit today, the pulpit, or on the highways and the byways teaching, the center of his message would be Matthew 5. That would be his sermon. So when you go to John 6, it tells you, the Lord tells you, this is the prophecy of God teaching men. And the precept to that is Jeremiah 31 and 31, where it says, man shall not teach men to know God. So when you know God, if you're of God, is to know God. This is, that I believe that's John 14. I think it was Thomas who asked, show us the Father. And he said, when you see me, you've seen the Father. This is the Lord coming to you face to face by way of this understanding, communicating with him. So in Matthew 5, it says he went to the mountain to teach, and he taught the people saying, blessed are the pure in heart. But you have in a transfiguration, the transfigure is to go from a glorious state to a fleshly state to a glorious state, a spiritual state. So you see Yeshua's regular body, and then he transfigured into his supreme body, right? So Peter asks if hey, you want me to write a tabernacle, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Elijah represented the prophets, Moses represented the law, and the Lord told him no. So Peter went down with no physical tablets, but he had the orders straight from God, where God said, look, this is my son, whom I'm well pleased, hear ye him. So now it's not something that's going to be written on physical tablets. It's going to be written in your heart. If the scriptures say, you're going to have a new heart, to have a pure heart is to have a heart to be able to understand, and that's what the New Covenant teaching is. So when the Lord went in Matthew 5, when it said he went on a mountain to teach, saying, blessed is the pure in heart, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The meek shall inherit the earth. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and say all manner of evil for you falsely and accuse you. This is a teaching that's supposed to be entered into your heart. You can't write this down. In fact, it's something that's spiritual. So, again, if the Lord was to teach, this is the backbone of his teaching. And guess what? It's a message about peace. It just is what it is. It's a message. He establishes his authority over Moses when he tells you, I know it's been said, an eye for eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, nay, don't move like that. Don't render evil for evil. And if you hate your brother, basically you murdered him. And then Paul will go on to tell you that, hatred is a fruit of the flesh, and the Lord told us to judge a tree by its fruit. So the fruit is what you produce. You either produce in fruit of the flesh or fruit of the spirit. The fruit of the flesh is hatred, jealousy, envy. Anybody in these carnal camps, that's what's gonna be produced. Idolatry. That's why they have those images of Yahawashi. They'll probably have them killing the Edomite or something like that, strung them up, because that's idolatry. Now, when Moses went to the mount to go, I'll come back here, but when Moses went to the mount, and it tells you after the covenant, the first covenant, they put the blood in the basins or the jars, and he sprinkled it on the altar and the people. That covenant was established by the blood of the goats, right, and rams. He sat and ate with the Lord. So when we sit and eat with the Lord, it's not the first supper per se. You always see us with the bread and the wine. It is the taking in of the Lord's teaching. That's why he told them in John 6 as well, my body is, the bread represents my body, and the blood, the wine represented the blood, and then when he said, look, you got to eat this, people they couldn't smoke a bag of that. They couldn't take that in, and they refrained from believing with them. That's John chapter 6, verse 66. That is the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is not accepting the Lord and his doctrine. Now, the brother was going into the language. The new covenant is a different language. We're on a whole total different station of vibration. The higher the frequency, the less of the subscribers. I use this example a lot. You have Boston, you have the Boston police. So the Boston police are on one frequency. And then you have state troopers. State troopers, you know, they have to cover the whole state. All right, or Texas Ranger, he covers the whole state, not just the city. So they're on a whole total different frequency, so they can be able to communicate on a higher level with one another. Then you have federal radios and military radios that even go further. So we're speaking, the frequency that we're on, it's on such a high vibration that they don't understand what it is that we're saying because they didn't understand the Lord. Again, in the first century, there was no argument about the syllables concerning the name when it says, didn't we teach you or tell you not to come in that name? And I noticed the same thing too. When you bring up that name Christ, they hate that name. And not just Christ, Christians. I remember when I first came into the camp, I was reading, that was Peter's, the 4th chapter, and I brought up that word Christian, and they don't say that word Christian, you know what I'm saying? Because that's a demon. Demons don't like that name Christ. They don't like Christians. And it's not Christians or modern-day Christians who proclaim to be Christians. You have to be careful because Paul said, and not just Paul, but Peter said, when I depart, better best believe that wolves are going to enter into the church. And their job is to say, you have people that are born, quote-unquote, so-called Christians from birth, meaning their mothers raised them up as Christians. So they'll say that they're Christians, and they'll misrepresent what it is to be a Christian. A Christian, first of all, is blessed, right? That's Jeremiah 1 and 5. You have not chosen me, I have chosen you. Before I was formed in my mother's womb, I knew you, right? So, first of all, to be blessed is to be chosen, to be a follower of Mashiach is to be anointed. To be anointed is Christos, Mashiach. That's something that you don't play with that. Like, it's the definition that is the power behind it. These guys want you to, think about carnal things, always thinking about carnal laws, carnal ordinances that can't save you. And they want you to be away from the Spirit. That's why I told you in Galatians 3, Paul was like, yo, did you receive the Holy Spirit by, the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? So this is a spiritual thing because nobody's able to take this away from you. Nobody's going to be able to, it's not tangible. You can't take it. It's going to be something that's going to be in your heart. It's going to be in your soul. New covenant is something that's completely spiritual. And it tells you that carnal guys can't discern the things of the Spirit. Again, Joseph was locked away when he was visited by the baker, right? And then one was the baker and one was a wine bearer. One was set free, and one was set free, and the other one was put to death. So someone happened to die in order for you to live. That's what this thing is about. The Lord had to die so that the elect could live. He is that atonement, right? He is that lamb, the lamb that took away the sin from the earth, right? And this is what Romans, the 8th chapter, tells you there's no new condemnation for them that are in Mashiach, them that are in Christ, right? There's no law that can condemn us because we already know that the law was what killed us, right? And it's the Spirit of the Lord who gives us life. So with these guys want to keep you in the spirit of hatred and the spirit of jealousy. All that camp stuff is jealousy, it's the flesh, it's idolatry, It's when a man tells you he's waiting to receive power so that he could kill a heathen and take his wife. The Lord killed 70,000 men in Israel for that type of behavior. That's not something that's of God. Nobody that's of God is going to maneuver like that. And it's an apostolic. I don't know, Carl, if you can hear me. I get that word. tangled up, messed up. It's the doctrine of the apostles, and what the doctrine of the apostles is the teaching that they taught. So there may be something in the old that is not cohesive in the new, because and the Lord knew this. That's why He told you can't mix two fabrics. This is what He was speaking about. He was speaking about the old and the new, and the old wine and the new wine. Again, for you to say, I know it has been said here, even with the divorce, when they tried to trip Him up and ask Him about the divorce, and the Lord said, well, excuse me, the Lord said, they said, well, Moses said, we could give her a bill of divorce, and it's so. And the Lord said, well, from the beginning, this wasn't so. My Father never wanted you to divorce. And He said, let no man, come in between that union. So it was telling you that Moses is not in charge of that. Moses is not in charge of that. And then that man that was, I believe he was blind, and the Lord had healed him, and he was going back and forth with those Pharisees, and they said that we are Moses' disciples. And this is what you see God proclaiming to be in the new covenant, and then Moses' disciples. They can't discern the Spirit. They can't discern the Spirit at all. And they always linking it back to the order, because from the jump, that old law wasn't for right. It tells you, scriptures tell you that law was not intended for righteous men. It was intended for murderers and idolaters and thieves, right? And I want to say this too. Something I was thinking about, Melchizedek, when he had met with Abraham, he had bread and wine. Jesse, when young David had went out to play the harp for Saul to calm him down, his father gave him bread and wine, right? So the new covenant was all throughout the scriptures. It was all throughout the scriptures. It's a spiritual thing. And I heard this guy, he did this lesson, concerning the old and the new, and he said that there is no difference. Well, in what world is there no difference between the old and the new? And obviously he's speaking about the covenant, right? But in what world is there no difference between the old and the new? You never, hit the lottery today and decide, I want to go get a new vehicle, and go to the car lot and let the dealer tell you, hey, don't worry about that. I know you want a new vehicle, but this one's old, but there's no difference. That's the whole point of something being new, that it's not old. Even in the covenant, I'm going to make a covenant not like the ones I made with your father. So this one is going to be different. Israel, the actual people, was symbolic for something that was going to be done in the spirit. That's the reason why I told you in John that it's not going to be by the flesh. Anybody, listen, Paul boasted about being a Christian, not about being a Hebrew Israelite. Matter of fact, he said, I counted being a Hebrew Israelite as dung because it profits you nothing. Nothing. Being a Hebrew Israelite of the flesh profits you absolutely nothing. Nicodemus, being a master in the law, had to have been born again. Why? Because it's of the spirit. It's not of the flesh. And God is telling you basically that, the devil's doctrine, you're not going to die. Why? Because of your flesh. And then they're holding you to the law by telling you to keep the law to the best of your ability. When having that mind frame, because they know it's something deeper than what you think it is, but just having that mind frame puts you in a place where you're cursed. Because when you break one law, you break them all, and you're underneath the curse. And it's the reason why these guys are telling you that they're cursed. If you listen to their doctrine, it's a cursed doctrine. You got cursed people trying to tell you about God, trying to tell you about the scriptures. You're cursed, we're cursed. The 2/3, the curse. The new covenant is not about cursing, and curses and blessings can't come out the same mouth. It doesn't make no sense. So in Matthew 5, it lists 8 blessings that we identify our people as. So our people aren't so-called Black, Native Americans, and Hispanic. Our people are pure in heart. Our people are meek. And when you're meek, that means you're sincerely meek. Not meek to people that you want to be meek to. That's why I say, if you love your neighbor, I know it's been said that love your neighbor and hate thy enemy, but I tell you, no, nay, rather, love your enemy. Because if you do that, what good are you? You're no better than a publican. And those were considered the worst people at his time. All right? So that spirit of hatred is completely off. It's completely off. It's not what the Lord was teaching. There was 8 blessings that came with. This is how we identify our people, not by the flesh. We identify you as, are you meek? Are you merciful? When you guys get to the great white throne, which they don't teach, you're going to have to be held accountable for what it is that you did in this body. We're not waiting for new bodies to be in a covenant relationship with the Lord. That's carnal as hell. They're telling guys you got to be in a spaceship in order to be in a covenant relationship with the Lord. 2,000 years after he shed his blood. That's complete blasphemy. You're rejecting God's Holy Spirit. None of you guys that are teaching in these carnal camps are going to receive salvation, teaching that the new covenant 2,000 years after the Lord shed his blood and suffered, redeemed, past tense, the elect with his precious blood. The Bible tells you to mortify the deeds of this body. So, yeah, just another one really quick, man. The Spirit jumped on me. The Spirit has been pressing lately, so the praise of the saints is really sustaining me. And tell you brothers just to continue in the Spirit. Continue in the Spirit. We all will have to stand before that judgment. We all are going to be held accountable for what it is that we do here. Shalom.